On the last episode, we took the boat to extreme remote locations. I went to my local dive shop and gave you the behind the scenes of my Hawaiian sling. We shot some incredible fish and enjoyed some beautiful scenery. Now it's time to dive right into day 2. Today is day 2. We're gonna head into a super far area from the spots we were yesterday. And again, same deal. We're gonna be looking on Google Earth, different maps, trying to figure out good locations to dive. And we have a hell of a wrecking crew. Nothing more to say, but then I will see you guys down below. Alright everyone, welcome to the voiceovers and welcome underwater. Do me a favor, if you're not already, like, subscribe, follow all the adventures. I drop a video every week and you see crazy dives and you get to hold your breath with me. This is a great trip because we have Derek who's on the third person camera, so you get a third person angle. And as I'm dropping, I'm using a pole spear and there's a beautiful mutton snapper and he's kind of playing a little cat and mouse. He dives back and I'm just hovering above, being super patient, waiting for him to pop his head out, and right there he does. And I go ahead, pull the fish to me because I know that headhunter slip tip is engaged and it's really hard for the fish to come off if you have a good solid shot in the fish. You can grab the cable, cinch it, kind of basically get your hands on the fish and head up to the surface. And we're doing a lot of good buddy diving. That was Ricky, who just was acting as a buddy, came down, helped to fend off any sharks if any decided to show up.
Good one. Someone had to break the ice. It's a good one. It's the biggest one we got so far. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. I just gutted him, so we'll see what comes in.
On this drop, I'm going to take you using a different perspective. This is Ricky's GoPro, and I'm kind of right next to him a little bit, and you'll see from my shot in just a minute. But he made a drop. He's down there almost getting level with all these permit, and they are absolutely delicious, and they're going to be a blast on pole spearing them. Kind of a rare occasion, but he goes down to about roughly 30 feet, lines up a shot on the biggest one that he can get close to, lands a nice tail shot, and this thing just starts ripping line. And I actually get a permit as well, and you'll see a little bit of a different tactic that I use. He's letting this guy run quite a bit. It ends up getting rocked up, stuck under the ledge there, and that's the advantage of having the belt reel. But you'll see from my perspective, after he breaks the surface, we'll switch back over to my GoPro and you'll see me lace one of these guys. So this is my perspective seeing Ricky spear his fish. This thing takes off and there's so many permit around that I want to make sure we capitalize on this opportunity. And I see after he speared the one, they all scatter, and I make a quick drop, do a little bit of grunting. This one came right in, landed a good shot, but what I do is I'm sitting there kicking and I'm holding my spear line, not letting him get any slack from my belt reel. I'm kicking just enough to keep him above the reef, and then if it comes to the point where okay, I'm getting a little tired, I need to head up to the surface, that's what I do here. I start letting out my belt reel line just enough for him to stay off the bottom and me to get all the way up to the top. Now once I'm at the surface, I can start reeling him all the way in and getting him up to the surface.
Bro, look at the size of that kingfish. You see it? You see it? Look over.
Now that I secured my permit, we switch back over to Ricky's GoPro, and this is the extraction dive. He ended up just breathing up the entire time while I was dealing with my permit. He makes a drop, Mitten, because he has his belt reel, all that line out, he's doing a really good job of making sure he's not diving directly down on top of his line. He's off to the side of it a little bit, so it kind of makes a big loop. as he gets to the bottom, and you'll see why that's, and there's an advantage to that in a minute here. This fish is pretty worn out. He gets a hold of his tail. Now that kind of eliminates the fish from creating any more chaos. He bear hugs the fish, he gets his hand in his gills, and now he's kind of backtracking with his spear, his line, everything, and he's kind of making sure he's managing all the line that's out. He does it right there. He gets a little bit off of the reef and just is kind of keeping it all manageable on his way to the surface. And for some reason something happens, he has his divers there, buddy divers there to help him out if he runs into any problems. But nice, 2 beautiful fish to start the day, and we're absolutely stoked.
Nice, dude. Nice. Good job. And extracted it yourself. Good stuff. Double-headed. Here, we'll go get mine. Oh, I shot one too. I'll get yours.
Now, shortly after, a lot of sharks really showed up. But we go ahead, I think we gutted those guys, and that's the advantage of I know we're diving deeper, but we're not always going to the bottom, and that's the advantage of, you know, those pelagics coming through. You don't even have to go all the way to the bottom. You can go halfway. But on this drop, I've been seeing a lot of muttons around, so this nice one comes right into me, gives me the broadside, land a really good shot, and I start horsing them up, and I know there's sharks around. I just saw one as I was taking the shot on this fish, and things get a little crazy. And you'll see something I do right here. I pull my spear back as I saw that shark coming in, and then I pushed it right in front of him to try to deter the shark away from the mutton, and that gives me just enough time to get up past the sharks and my buddy divers down there to kind of poke them away and make sure I get this fish to the surface without any casualties, fish or ourselves.
That was adrenaline. Dude, you see me load up my pole spear and like push back at him? Dude, there were like, dude, there were some giants down there. Like there were like 4 or 5 that were like 3 times. Whew, that was crazy. That's all good. I saw the big one come in and yeah.
All right, you guys, we are done for the day. What? Now it's time to jump in a different zone. We started off super deep on that last one, so now we're going to a little bit more shallow. It kind of seemed like in the moment it was a little deep, but you'll see the spear I'm using is not the one I was using before. So I switched over to the Hawaiian sling. If you haven't seen that video of me putting this thing together, well, of my buddy putting it together over at Exhale Spearfishing, it is on the last episode, and at the end of this one, go ahead and click on that one. Nice, beautiful hogfish comes in. Before I even pursue, I go ahead and draw back, and I'm just really kind of testing out this slip tip system I have on this spear. And this is one of my first fish on it. You'll see that slip tip engaged, working perfectly, and it's just like this slip tip on the pole spear, but just a different form of spear.
Dude, the male face tricked me. I thought he was way bigger. Yeah, but it's a male, but it's like small.
Something that works great, and I always recommend it in my videos, is to gut your fish after you spear it. One, because it maintains the meat, keeps it super clean whenever you're filleting the fish, so any guts or any nastiness inside the fish, if you're filleting it, you won't accidentally poke it with a knife and it get all in the meat. Also, it saves on ice, and the best part is that it brings in other fish, and that's exactly what happened here. I gutted that fish, I gutted the hogfish, and a bunch of little bait fish came around, kind of got this yellowfin grouper all jacked up, and I spotted it off on the drop off. He thought he was kind of hidden inside this edge, and this was a perfect opportunity for me to really test this slip tip. The thing right through the face, deployed perfectly, which really decreased a chance of the fish tearing out. And that's the huge advantage of using that slip tip, is that you don't have to worry about the fish kind of twisting and turning and wrenching off of your spear.
It's good eating size one. It's a yellowfin. Yeah, it's not as big as I thought. I thought we were deeper. It's only 44 feet. Probably like 50 to the roller. Huh? I don't know.
We decided to mix it up and hit an area that was a little bit more shallow. And again, we're not going off of any numbers that we currently have. Everything is us just hopping in, taking a look, seeing what we find. And this was, I was the only one in the water because I was just hopping in to take a look, and there was this nice mutton on this little reef patch. I made a drop on the reef patch. This thing kind of veered away into the, no man's land. And when this happens, it's either going to be, a Hail Mary. I'm going to go ahead, chase after the fish a good amount. He keeps giving me the tail wag. I aim mid-body, took a rip, and hit him back towards the tail. Now, I'm just letting him run, and that's why I have this Hawaiian sling, is because it has the reel on it, so if you shoot a fish, it can peel offline. If I did see a shark, I'd be able to rip it up to the surface as fast as I can and not worried about it tearing out because of the slip tip. But I wasn't too positive on the shot. Again, if a shark came, I would rip it out. Even if the fish tore off, I'd rather it tear off and go get away than train another shark and have the shark eat it. So I was babying it a little bit just to make sure that the slip tip was engaged enough. But again, that thing working flawlessly. So far, so good. Pretty excited about it, and I'm definitely going to be testing it out in other adventures. And let me know if you want to see more footage on the Hawaiian sling as opposed to the pole spear. Now we went ahead and drifted off into a little bit of a deeper zone. This is Derek's GoPro. He makes a drop. There was a big yellowfin grouper that was probably twice the size of the one I already shot. It was kind of hanging out in the sand. You'll see it at the tip of the pole spear right there towards the bottom. Derek makes a drop. The thing kind of does a little flutter, but Derek ends up lining up. Well, right now he's lining up on the fish, but like I said, he keeps fluttering, heading towards some structure. Luckily, Derek was hoping that hiding behind that rock would kind of give him, a little bit of sneakiness. But this fish kind of just cruises to this structure, thinks he's really safe. Derek lands a really good gill plate shot, and this thing gets super crazy under this rock. That was a really long dive, especially because we were fighting a little bit of current. I was right on top of Derek, though, just being there to back him up, and then also knowing we're probably going to have shark duty, and we're going to have to fight the current to pull this fish out of this rock.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too bad to get him out.
Because there was a lot of current, I decided to have the boat throw me one of my subnados. That way I can hold myself and Derek up current while we deal with this fish. But fortunately, the fish wiggled out and we could pull it right out of the hole, and Derek ripped it up to the surface.
That's not as big as I thought, so that's good. That's a good size. You got it.
Now that doesn't happen all the time, but luckily in this case it did. And we didn't have to make another drop, but I did keep those subnados on, and we saw a nice black grouper head into this giant reef structure. And again, I'm sitting there fighting current, but luckily I have those subnados. I'm testing it out, making a drop, and this is kind of just a recon mission, and ends up being a long dive, and there was zero chance I would get even close to this amount of dive time unless I had those subnados helping me out fight the current. And again, it's a way to retrieve gear. I wouldn't hunt on them the entire time, but in this certain situation, like I said, the current was ripping, so it made it really difficult to dive on one spot. It was more of just us cruising along the bottom, hoping for muttons, yellowtail, anything other than finding fish in rocks, because it was so hard to keep on the one spot. Now I'm looking in these little cracks and edges. And like this grouper that we're talking about, it was probably like a 40-pounder. But I keep checking these edges, waiting to turn a corner and see its head just facing at me. But I don't see it at this moment. I was ready to possibly see one there, but I looked down and I was like, wow, this is kind of a big looking cave. So I decide to kind of explore a little bit. And like I said, since I've kind of conserved on energy, I was able to pop up in here. That was a nice little yellowfin that was off in the corner there. But the amount of cave structure and area is insane on this spot. And there's so many spots out there like this, but just diving them, there's only a select few that can actually go down and not only find the spot and know about it, but actually be able to dive it. But I literally went through one side of the reef and out the other. And the guys were like, oh shoot, I didn't even realize that reef was that big. So I was really stoked to get to the surface and tell the guys how incredible that structure was in there and how cool that footage was.
Dude, it is a absolute cavern in there. That's all small. Like, dude, he could go, he has a mansion there. He could go anywhere. Crazy. You gotta see this footage, it was insane.
We head back into a little bit of the shallower reef, and on this drop, you'll see how much life is just teeming on this reef. And it's not just fish that you could spear, but just all the coral and all the, ornamental fish. But I make a drop. There was a yellowfin grouper right there. I was done shooting yellowfins for the day, so I wasn't going to be, I was going to be a little more selective. I was going for like a black grouper, muttons, hogfish, stuff like that. But I go to the top of this reef and I'm just sitting there enjoying like all the life, and you'll see all these Nassaus just hanging out there on the bottom. There's a beautiful one right there just staring at me, all lit up, incredible color. Love kind of making drops and just really seeing all the sea life on the reef. There's a beautiful mutton right there, and I honestly probably would have pursued it. Shark off in the distance, and again another Nassau there. It's just, I was like, maybe I'm gonna go after the mutton, but I was like, I'm just enjoying my dive, and it's always nice to do these every once in a while, just seeing all the life that these reefs have to offer. And again, there was a hogfish there, probably it was a shooter, but I just liked kind of just going down and enjoying myself on this dive rather than just going down and trying to kill every single thing that I see that I can shoot.
No.
Derek, on the other hand, ends up being a little bit farther down on the reef and spotted a beautiful black grouper, and it went into this little cavern down underneath this rock. So he goes down, loads up his spear. He sees all these fish around this edge. He's hoping to see, the grouper be right there. But he ends up being a little bit farther, and it's an awkward spot too, because he had a shot on the grouper there, but it kind of moved behind this pillar. Luckily he has his dive light, and the grouper kind of pokes his head out like right there, and he landed a really good headshot. But unfortunately, he was using the Dyneema slip tip, and not only did it just trash his ejector rod, but it also tore his Dyneema right off. We made a bunch of dives, but somehow this grouper slipped out. I'm really hoping it survived, but unfortunately this guy,
I got a nice black
we
here.
weren't able to recover him.
Yeah.
But that was just a little testament to see all the power these things really do have, and you have to have quality gear if you plan on landing one of these big fish. And Derek has quality gear, but even still with that, it still makes it super tough. Now we just keep drifting on this reef, and I decide it was really slow, so I wanted to test out this Hawaiian sling slip tip on a pelagic. So I decided to give a rip on this Spearo mackerel. And like I said before, I'm just really testing this system out. I want to make sure it can pull line off the reel, It can engage the slip tip and can also land fish pretty well. So we end up, like I said, we started getting a little bit delirious just because it was really slow throughout the day, and we decided to I decided to shoot this fish.
Second shot. Just kidding. Yes. Second shot, I need a second shot. But Richard, when you see this thing, yeah, you're welcome. Yeah? Death.
I told you he was hanging out with Mario too much.
I'm gonna gut him.
Now, I said it before and I'll say it again. I can't reiterate how important it is to be sure you're gutting your fish. Even if you're worried about sharks, it's more likely it's going to bring in muttons just like this. And this was exactly right after I gutted that Spearo mackerel. I hooked him to my belt because I saw this mutton coming in and had to make a quick drop. So I not only shot this mutton, but I have that Spearo mackerel kind of tied to my waist. And I'm like just strung up with fish at the moment. Thank God there were no sharks or kudas around, but it was time to kind of take a break and hop in the boat and get rid of some of these fish and move to a different location. But yeah, pretty excited on how that sling is performing up so like this point so far.
Pretty cool with the Spearo attached to my
As the day is winding down, it ends up being super slow. We still wanted to get a good amount of fish to bring home as well as to cook for dinner. And I make a drop. Again, I'm just testing out the the Hawaiian sling. Cruising on my way down to the bottom, and I forget the depth on this one, but it was a little bit, on the deeper-ish side. Like I said, it's been really slow. If a mutton came by or a shooter hogfish came by, I would definitely, take a rip at it. I'm looking around. I know this hogfish isn't going anywhere, so it was kind of like a last-minute option. Land a shot right through the gill plate. Actually, I shot right through the gills and out the mouth on this shot. So I realized that's what was going on. So I made sure I pushed the spear into the ground and got my hands on the fish. Keeping my eyes peeled not only for sharks, but in case a mutton comes by, I can point it out to one of the other divers at the surface. And especially if I'm not struggling for air, I just shot that guy, I'm just easing my way up to the surface, not creating any more chaos in the water to attract a predator. We have one last clip from Derek, and we're drifting off into the deeper area. He spots this nice mutton already on the bottom. As he was on the bottom, that's why he hit his GoPro. Took off after the fish, shot super low, but kind of, like I said, that slip tip, if you hit him in a good chunk of meat, there's a high chance you're going to get the fish, because it's really hard for these fish to tear out when that slip tip's engaged. Brings this fish to the surface. Another beautiful mutton to add to the box.
Got a shark on me.
We made it back from the Bahamas, and I have a little special treat. It is about a week later. It's been 9 days roughly since I shot those muttons. I had one yesterday, and you would think, wow, that's a long time to go with holding on to fillets. But guess what? We didn't fillet the fish. I actually dry aged it, and all I did was I have it in this gator cooler, and I've just been dumping ice on it every day. And so it's not gonna be all gross and wet, and because I actually drained it, opened up the drain plug, and I've just been letting the ice melt, keeping it super chilled, and dumping as much ice as I could on it all day. And I don't have an ice maker, so I just used my tray of ice in my freezer and just did that daily. That was enough to hold it. That gator held the ice really well. And now it's time to fillet this thing, and I'm gonna see a little bit of a difference in the meat. It should be a little more soft, a little whiter, like a little more pure, but only do this if you brain bleed and gut the fish once you harvest them from the ocean. And then also, whenever we got it, we put it in a brine all the way home. It hasn't been unchilled at all. Look at that beauty. It smells like fish, but you know, that's kind of normal. But we're gonna experiment, oh God, on this together. We're gonna take a look at the meat, see how it feels, see how it looks, see if there's a difference. Yeah, that was a really good trip, and I love mutton, one of my favorite fish to eat. And this guy is a beauty. And I'm gonna make sure I cook a lot of, I like cooking a lot of fish at once because it leaves some leftovers. And some of these ways, normally I don't like leftover fish, and a lot of people I know don't like leftover fish. But man, I tell you, some of the ways that I cook it, it's hard to beat. Even leftovers, it's still freaking top notch, top quality. And with this dry age, the best part is you don't have to deal with the fish initially. And I'm doing this just on a cooler top, and I end up throwing, I have like some Publix bags that I put the carcass in, and I'll just throw it in the trash. But I try to make sure it's not on a day, well, I make sure it's on a day where I actually, the fish gets, like the garbage actually gets taken out. There we go, a little bit better. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, so, all right. So I got that one. I don't know, that spear hole looks a little suspect. Maybe if I didn't meat shot the fish, it would be a little bit better. But you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. We'll take a look at that in a second. Meat feels good, it looks good. Looks like nice and white. We'll see what it looks like at the end when we finish everything. Yeah, that was pretty bad meat shot by me. My bad fish. I hope you don't take it personal. I'm trying to get over the rib cage. Yeah, another thing that's great about gutting your fish is not only does it save on ice, but when you fillet it, you don't have that nasty bile and grossness to it. So I'm just gonna snap this in half, and I'm just gonna stick it straight in a baggie. See if I can figure this out. There you go. That didn't work too well, but we'll figure it out. All right. I love this Cutco knife. Not a sponsor, but I love that it can extend. And now, it was short for like the precision cuts. Now for filleting the fish, it's a super long blade to get through these nice giant fillets on bigger fish. Look at that. Nice and skinned. Do it on the next one. And I'm gonna also take care of the bloodline on these guys. Because it's been here for a while, I'm gonna make sure I cut the bloodline out pretty good. And again, this bloodline would be 1,000 times worse if it was not bled properly. So I'm starting at the top and I'm angling it away so you get that bloodline out. Sometimes I'll save the scraps, use them for chumming next time I go out. It's kind of multi-purpose. Kind of get back to the ocean a little bit. I'm gonna cut a little bit of that shot out because I suck. And then work on the other one. And whenever I do the bloodline, it gets the pin bones out too, like for sure. And I'll get these, I'm gonna do a little recipe. So I'm gonna get them about that big. I just throw them on the plate. There's a little bit of bloodline. I'm gonna go ahead and sharp knife goes a long way to get that little extra blood. Again, you could use that as scraps for chumming next time you go out. I'm being very picky because I want to make sure I do this right and it's really good. And then do the same thing here where it's blood, and I angle my knife away from the center of it so it cuts out any pin bones, and also start forward and then angle the knife out so it cuts away and cuts out any of the bloodline. And I flip it over. If I want to do a little extra bloodline cutting outage, make it perfect, I can always do that. There's a little bit of belly bones right there that I can chop out. And a thing I suggest you guys do, just to make sure everything's like perfect, is feel when you finish. Feel the meat. Make sure it's make sure there's no pin bones or anything in there like that. But that's what we get. And the meat smells really good. Doesn't smell fishy. Smells primo. And I know it's gonna be really good because I did this with the fish. The other one I shot recently. Again, just being very picky. Any little amount of blood I'm kind of chopping out, just being picky. Again, just chopping it, making little stacks of them so I don't have to do it inside. But that is what you get, full length. Got beautiful slabs. And then I'm gonna double bag that, and I'm gonna throw it in the trash, and I'm gonna bring that sucker straight out to the road because I don't want my neighbors, and I don't want to smell it personally if it's rotten, and it's pretty gross. But I'm gonna clean this cooler, get this fish inside. I'm gonna cook up a simple meal for you guys. You're gonna love it. Stay tuned, see you guys inside. All right, welcome to the kitchen, and we already dove into it. I got these guys, put non-stick on a little pan, preheated the oven to 400, laid them all out, nice as flat as I could get. And then I went and put salt and pepper on there, and then I have a skillet here. And you're supposed to use butter, but I used bacon grease. So like, how can it go wrong and how could it be bad? But I also added some, nothing particular, just kind of like what I would think would be to taste. I added a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, some Tony's along with some Danos, just you want some kind of Creole seasoning and Cajun season, something like that. And then I chopped up some fresh parsley, and I put some of the, went ahead and went with the pre-minced garlic, because you know how mincing garlic yourself, it is a pain. But I'm cooking this on low heat, letting it kind of simmer, and I'm only using that to kind of mix everything up. And we're gonna go ahead and stir it all together slowly, and then what comes next is pretty magical. But yeah, you wanna just cook it on low heat. You don't wanna actually like cook this mixture. You just want to let it all bubble and mix. And then what we're gonna do next is, once I mix it all together, once it starts kind of bubbling a little bit, Italian breadcrumbs, Parmesan cheese, freshly grated. I'm gonna mix those in there together, and we're gonna get like some kind of crumble in this pan. So really what I'm doing is I'm just kind of playing around with it. And got the Parmesan cheese. I'm gonna go ahead and throw some of that. I'll probably go like half and half. So we got Parmesan cheese. We throw a bunch of breadcrumbs in there. And we just let that juice just mix all together. And we want it to be like a little crumble. I'm a very clean cooker, so I don't like spilling over the edge. Slowly mixing it together. And go ahead, try more Parmesan. I might use that whole thing because you can't go wrong. More breadcrumbs. Again, just turning it into like a little crumble, making sure it's all mixed together. And then whenever we are done, we're just gonna smear it across, pour it across this, and just make like a little, almost like a little casserole. Fish casserole, mutton snapper casserole. It's not super crumbly, but it's kind of liquidy. And I'm just gonna pour it all on there, and I'll show you the aftermath. It is complete. Look at that. It doesn't look super pretty, but it's gonna taste pretty. So it ended up taking a little longer than I thought. I cooked it for 30 minutes because I made such a thick topping on it, but it's out and it tastes very bacony, and it is So good and juicy and delicious. Look at that. It is primo. One of my favorite ways to cook it, and so simple because it was just this pan and a frying pan, and that's it. And then, you know, obviously plates, but super soft, tons of flavor. You just have to try this. Comment below if you try it. Let me know how it turned out for you guys. Also, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it that thumbs up. If you're new, consider subscribing. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you guys next week for another adventure. Later.